So before we go over our review of writing parallel and perpendicular lines, writing equations of parallel and perpendicular lines, I wanted to go ahead and do a quick overview of Dropbox Assignment 4. Dropbox Assignment 4 is due today, which is Wednesday the 14th. And this one is just a little bit different. It's a proof again, but this one asks that you actually fill in the statements. So they give you the reasons and you need to fill in the statements. It coincides with what we've been talking about. It says given that ABCD is a parallelogram, we want to prove that triangle ABE, so the top triangle you see here, is congruent to triangle CDE. So the first reason they give us is given. So you want to look, I'm not going to give you the answers directly here, but guys, there's only one statement that's given, so keep that in mind. So you would go ahead and write whatever statement was given there as your statement. Your options are down here. The next reason says that in a parallelogram, opposite sides are congruent. So from your list here, find which statement is talking about opposite sides, a pair of opposite sides being congruent. And that's going to be the statement that matches with this reason. The next one says in a parallelogram, diagonals bisect each other. So again, find something that shows us that diagonals would be bisected. And there's going to be two reasons. So these two can really be in either, the statements can be in either order, because there's going to be two sets of diagonals, or one set of diagonals. So two different diagonals that are being bisected. So really, there's two that would be correct for either 3 or 4. The order will not matter on those. And then the last statement is, or the last reason is side congruence. So what statement shows side congruence for that triangle, or for those two triangles? So hopefully that should help you narrow down the statements that would go with the reasons as you fill in your proof. Make sure when you finish it, you upload it to the Dropbox assignment number 4 Dropbox under assignments in the OHS. All right, now it's time to do a game. This is going to help assess how much you know about writing equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. So I want you to go to this website right here. It's https. I'm going to link it in the email that I sent you as well. So if you don't want to type it in, you can go back to the email that I sent you this recording link in and click on the link in there. But it's join.quizizz with 2 Z's at the end.com. And you're going to enter this game code. This is much like Kahoot, except for it's more of a homework assignment as far as it's not real time with the pressure of actually being a live game. So at this point, I want you to enter that and pause this recording. So pause the recording while you do the game. There's 5 questions, and then when you're done with the game, unpause the recording and come back and follow the directions after. So pause the recording and complete this little game assignment. And I will be able to see who did the game and who didn't, as well as your results. So make sure you do your best. All right, so now that you have finished the game, you should be ready to practice. So if you got 3 or less questions correct on the game, I want you to open, it's not a file transfer since I can't transfer on YouTube recordings, but go from your email that I sent you, and one of the attachments is practice on writing the slope of parallel and perpendicular lines. So if you got 3 or less correct, open that file transfer, open that file, the attachment from your email, and continue watching the recording. If you got 4 or 5 questions correct, open the file transfer or the attachment from your email, but pause the recording. I want you to work on this on your own if you got 4 or 5 questions correct. That means you have a pretty good grasp. So work on them as on your own. The answers will be there in the document on the second page, so you can actually check your answers as you work. If you have questions, come back to the recording and find the explanation for the problem that you have questions on. But if you finish and you check the answers and you get all the answers correct, if you're in this second group, then you don't have to watch the rest of this recording. However, if you only got 3 or less correct, I want you to continue watching because we're going to work on these problems together. The first one here says write the slope-intercept form of each line. So the first one is x plus 10y equals 42. First of all, we need to remember what slope-intercept form is. Remember, it's y equals mx plus b. And the whole reason it's called slope-intercept is because m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So we want to get it into that form. The way we get into that form is to isolate y. We want to get y by itself. So we'll start moving things away from y. We'll subtract x. We get 10y equals, and we're just going to put this in order, negative x plus 42, because we know we want the x first in our mx plus b form. And then we'll divide by 10. So we'll end up with y equals, and this negative x over 10, remember having a negative in front of a variable is like having a negative 1 if there's no other number. So this is a negative 1/10 x, and we'll just leave this, the 42 over 10. You can get it in decimal form, which is 4.2, or you could leave it in a simplified fraction, which would be 21 over 5. But we'll go ahead and put it as 4.2. Not 42, but 4.2 there. So again, slope-intercept form, and let's look at number 2 here. We want to write slope-intercept form of the equation of the line through the given point with the given slope. We're going to use point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Negative 5 is our m. The point is our x1, y1. So we're going to do y minus y1 is 5. And guys, you want your x and your y, not the x1, y1, but you want the x and the y to be in the equation. Because think about it, when you're writing an equation, it has x and y. So you're not trying to substitute anything in for x and y. Those stay there. So equals, and our slope is negative 5 times x minus, but for x1 we do substitute in negative 1. So minus a negative 1, that turns into a big plus sign, minus a negative. Now we simplify, so distribute. Y minus 5 equals, and we have negative 5x, and then negative 5 times positive 1, so negative 5. And finally, we add 5. To get y by itself, we're writing it in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So we end up with y equals negative 5x, and negative 5 plus 5 cancels to 0. So we just get y equals negative 5x for the slope-intercept form. Our b value, our y-intercept, is 0. So now let's look at 3. 3 says we need to write a line through the given point, which is 1, negative 3. So that's our x1, y1. Our slope is negative 5 again. So y minus y1 is negative 3 equals m, which is negative 5, times x minus x1. We're using that point slope form because we're given a point and a slope. You can use that graphic organizer I sent when we went over this originally. It'll also be attached to the email that I sent you, because that'll tell you exactly what to do. But since we have the point and the slope, we use point slope form to start with. So we take x minus x1, which is 1. Minus a negative turns into a positive. Y plus 3 equals negative 5x. Negative 5 times negative 1 is positive 5. Subtract 3. Y equals negative 5x and a plus 2 there. So now we're asked to write the slope-intercept form of the equation of a line through 2 points. So if you look at your graphic organizer, it will show you that when you're given 2 points, first you need to find the slope. Because again, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. We can easily use either of these points as our x1, y1. I usually just choose the first one because that's the easiest. when we're talking about point slope form, because we will start with point slope form. That's the easiest to start with in most cases, unless you are given the slope and given the b-value. But we don't know the slope. We need to use slope formula, which is m equals rise over run. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's label 3, 3 as our x2, y2. We're going to plug this in. y2 minus y1 is 3 minus 1 over x2 minus x1 is 3 minus negative 2, so that turns into a plus. We end up with 2 over 5. So our slope is 2 over 5. That's what's going to go in right there. And then we plug in our x1, y1. So it's going to be y minus y1 was 1 equals m, which is 2/5, times x minus x1, which was negative 2. Y minus 1 equals, oops, does not want to keep that, equals 2/5. We're going to distribute. So 2/5 x plus 4/5. And that should be a minus. It doesn't want to keep my writing for some reason. So then we add the 1. And adding 1 to 4/5 is like adding 5 over 5. So your computer, your calculator will do that for you. So we end up with y equals 2/5 x plus 9 over 5. And that is your slope-intercept form. Alrighty. 5 is going to be the same process. We just have to label x1, y1, x2, y2. Find the slope. M is equal to y2 minus y1, negative 3 minus 0, over x2 minus x1, 0 minus 4. We get negative 3 over negative 4, which is the same as 3 over 4. Then we go y minus y1, which is 0, equals m, plug in your slope, 3/4, times x minus x1, which is 4. Distribute. Y equals 3/4 x minus 3, because 3 times negative 4. Or 3/4 times negative 4 is just negative 3. And that's it there. Alrighty, so on these, write the slope-intercept form of the equation of the line that is described. And it says through 3, 0 and parallel to x plus y equals 2. So we need to take and figure out the slope of this line that it's parallel to. Get it in slope-intercept form. Minus x, we get y equals negative x plus 2. Well, the negative x, that's a negative 1. The slope is negative 1. It's parallel to that line, so it has a slope of negative 1 also. So that's the slope, negative 1. The point it goes through is x1, y1 here. So y minus y1 is 0 equals negative 1 times x minus 3. Y equals negative x plus 3, because we distribute. The next one, through 3, negative 5, but parallel to negative 2/3 x plus 1. The slope is negative 2/3. Here's your x1, y1. Y minus negative 5 equals negative 2/3 times x minus 3. And so now you can see here, all we did was distribute, simplify, and solve for y. And there's the equation of that line. So number 8 wants us to find a line that goes through the point 1, 1 and is perpendicular to y equals 1/2 x. This means that it has to have a slope of negative 2 over 1, the opposite reciprocal slope. So you can see, if you just pause the recording to watch here, you can see how we did it. Finally, here's the work